In our readings today, this prophet Isaiah gets great billing. In the first reading, his powerful sense of being called, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me," is followed by a litany of aspirational mandates or invocations, inspirations, if you will, that pledge the best of anything ever known or seen really in the lives of those around him. Healing, vindication, comfort, liberty, renown, and blessings, and more. And then when we get to the gospel, it is this prophet of great promise, whom is evoked by Jesus himself, who essentially says, "Isaiah told you so." And of course, we know that Jesus wastes no time in effecting these pledges of exoneration, of consolation, of cures, of consecrations in the lives of the people around him, and in fact, well beyond him. Isaiah stands tall among other towering figures: Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Zechariah, and others who diagnose and define, in the Middle East of those times, an era of social, political, economic, and religious issues that represent sparks of brilliance that coalesce in what the philosopher Karl Jaspers called the axial age in Persia, in Greece, in China, in India. Other similar wisdom figures, philosophers and seers, they were doing likewise. Of Isaiah and these Hebrew prophets around him, I've been quite fascinated with them lately. A Jesuit friend I spent time with in retreat this summer was reading Abraham Heschel and his great book, The Prophets. And so we talked at length in the evenings about the ministries that they engaged. And then just a few weeks ago at our Welcome Week Mass for the class of 2023, with fire alarms and all, yes, fire alarms here in this church. I didn't know there were so many strobe lights. As I said, "The Lord be with you," off they went. And then the gospel a few minutes later said, "Go set the world on fire," and I didn't quite think it meant the church. But somehow at that Welcome Week Mass, a very agonizing Jeremiah, he stole the spotlight and he helped us commission our new students and their families into our Creighton community. These rogue prophets we know so well are often disruptive, and their messages of doom and gloom are not at all dispassionate or deceptive, but discerning of the realities that haunt their people and prevent the flourishing of livelihood. So they speak of distractions and even depravities that lead their people astray. And the pleas that these prophets proffer time and again, they beg for a refocusing on the right priorities of daily life, such as with relationships, with proper worship, building community, and taking care of the vulnerable, such as the widows, the orphans, and the poor. Here in this space, just a couple of nights ago, Father Greg Boyle recalled these same categories of people and a special concern throughout the preaching of all of ancient Israel. And he asked us to know, who are these folks in our own daily lives? And beyond the judgments the prophets render on their own people, the ancient prophets also speak routinely of external threats. They warn of oncoming or ever-present tyrants, authoritarian governments, and their corresponding expressions of exploitation, of oppression, and enslavement that will live on for generations. whether it was our own people themselves who inflicted misery in their own lives, or coercions from about every which way around them, the prophets were there to diagnose blame and to describe the horror of both today and tomorrow. And yet, Amos, and through Micah, and particularly with Jeremiah, the people's prophet, and here today with Isaiah, we have a great message of hope. Through the dire circumstances of our own bad decisions, or the forces of the world that make life unjust, inequitable, and unsafe always, is the reminder that these can, in fact, and are righted in expressions of wisdom, compassion, and generosity, and that peoples and places indeed are restored and made even better. Yesterday here at Creighton, we engaged a town hall conversation with faculty and staff, and we took time at the very beginning to review the apostolic priorities of the Society of Jesus, the new four of them. And I found it inspiring to recognize how members of this Creighton community have stepped into these concerns, often doing so with resources of collegiality, of clear discernment, of goodwill. The worldwide priorities of the Jesuits are echoes, in a way, of the indictments of the prophets, in that they too suggest skewed priorities, marginalized and victimized peoples, and threats that compromise well-being, political and economic stability, and environmental safety. The fourth priority, care for our common home, highlights this third threat in global regard and calls, in a time of climate change, for all expressions of Ignatian-inspired outreach and education to work together around issues of sustainability and care for creation. With the readings today, though, in Isaiah's words, it is one priority that shines: the call for hope. Where these prophets of doom and gloom always end is where we can begin our academic year in a place of Jesuit higher learning. And let's do so in three ways. First, as students and with students, in classrooms, on retreat, in service work, around the globe. Let us never not be honest about the difficult realities of the world. Those right here close at home and far afield. On our campuses, in our work sites, we must study and experience what the Superior General Kolvenbach had called the gritty realities, and to ask our students to make diagnoses of their own. And in an education that cultivates self-awareness, a sense of vocation, and expertise across an impressive range of disciplines, let's keep reminding our students they can make a difference. Solutions are possible. Second, as a community, through our values of commitment, collaboration, creativity, and institutional and personal care, let us recognize contributions of intelligence, of expertise, of innovation that we each hold, and let's harness them with each other. As the work and the routine of American higher education faces incredible instabilities and true disruptions, it also showcases the greatest of opportunities, even in an imminent future. If we are true to our heritage and identity as Jesuit and Catholic, and even as a Creighton community, that has pioneered programs and pedagogies in academe, continuing to work with one another is as necessary as it's ever been. And then third, as an institution of Jesuit higher learning, as Creighton University itself, in Omaha, in Phoenix, in the Caribbean, at Points Global, let us keep recognizing the efficacy of our impact. Our mission of teaching and learning, our research efforts, our outreach in clinics, in courts, in corporations, and in the ideals and capabilities of our graduates, our mission is so honorable, and the world needs more of it. In finding solutions to the world's problems, in living and working together as a community, and in standing up in Omaha, reaching out around the nation and at global locales, we again begin anew, and I invite great hope. As both Isaiah and Jesus say today, let us proclaim a year acceptable to the Lord.